Okay, so Ishmael and I are here in Little Tokyo in front of you see the Japanese American
National.
National Museum. We thought this was a good location, Little Tokyo here. Maybe we'll come back here again another time and we can show you more of what Little Tokyo looks like. But yeah, we were at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion outside there in the courtyard, and we had our sign, of course, and of course you saw. We honestly respected the people talking and kept them out of the camera, but you could hear their voices. And we're just going to do a little recap about that whole thing.
The event.
Obviously it's a lot longer probably than the clip you're watching right now for a reason. I just like when you do have a language barrier. I mean, that's the first thing I have to point out, right?
Yeah,
was the language
there was
barrier.
Language barrier with this volunteer of the Shen event. He was a volunteer of the event, so he was giving us his insight about what he felt about the show. How it was for them it was a cultural thing.
For them it was a cultural thing, and he saw our sign that said no war with China. Well, that seemed to be his main focus.
Yeah.
Not Russia, Iran, or World War III. And that was the whole focus. You just saw a little bit of it, so we proceeded to tell him about the tagline that's used in all the commercial advertising out there, which is China before communism. And for him, he said that was all culturally. Everything was about the culture, the dancing and the music and all that kind of stuff, and it's beautiful. I'm not denying that. But when we would talk about obviously the big C, it was a whole different kind of a conversation, and so we were trying to be balanced. I think my take on it is, and we were also trying to, while he and the other person, the woman that you heard, were bringing in the Chinese perspective as people that were born and raised in mainland China. We were talking about the American perspective, the U.S. American perspective, in specifically to explain to him why, for China before communism to us is political. And a lot of people in this country will look at that as politics, not as culture.
Yeah.
So
we're trying to set the example of Dad mentioned how when you see Shakespeare plays, you don't see England before capitalism.
Right.
Yeah, and right here, that was their main thing. China before communism, glorifying the feudalist system. That they're not pointing out that China before communism was a feudalist society with a bunch of different warlords in different areas that did not have a central government, which is one of the main reasons that a lot of the famines that don't get brought up because they was under a capitalist or feudal mode of production, as opposed to a great leap forward that constantly gets brought up. It's he was their personal experience about it wouldn't let them see how they might be blinded to certain spots of capitalism that they felt that is freedom in a way.
Right. That's the go-to word, right? Is when they come to this country, people come here for freedom. Okay, I understand that. But you have to also understand this is a capitalist-dominated system. And that's the economy. And he even agreed with you that it's all about economics, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's what the focus is here. Is capitalism. And I don't think, again, there was a language barrier. I think when we concluded, we basically agreed we had to put it in real simple terms, like, I think the world is mostly good people and there are a few bad people. It literally had to be that basic. And I think he understood that, don't you? I mean,
yeah, he in a way he grasped what we're trying to say, that like with all societies there's a small group of individuals that may have control over the whole society, and they might guide it into their own worldview. Like the capitalists over here, like their worldview is capitalism, so that's the system they implemented over here, and as opposed to over there where they're members of the Falun Gong, so like their views are very controversial. And he kept saying like the Chinese Communist Party repressed them, but if you understood their beliefs, like you might be compelled to believe, okay, maybe they do need to be restrained a little bit, because believing that some people do have a soul and others don't, it's a bit in this compared to the U.S. that it's like supposed to be everybody's equal, and it doesn't. You could be whoever you want to be with whoever you want to be with if you want to marry. To them, it was like a very, I guess that would have been being pushed by the Communist Party. They're like imposed into them. So I guess their differences with the Communist Party is like they won't, since some of their beliefs might seem unusual and like very regressive and like
discriminatory.
Yeah, discriminatory.
Yeah,
it's like if they were to really say that to the public instead of like, oh, China for communism, they wouldn't have that much support. And like, and it gives you an understanding why China's, I guess, clamping down on them hard, because like it's trying to bring what China to before the Communist Party took over, when, how I mentioned, a feudalist society.
Right, exactly. I mean, we tried to explain, like in this country, how, if you oppose the process or the system of those in control, they're going to suppress you here too.
Yes.
So, the main thing is, that's why I think we did get back to most people are good, most people are not bad kind of idea, to try to convey that, it's really the principle of it, or the basics of it, is the same here.
Yeah.
But it has obviously different characteristics, like we like to say, we have different cultural characteristics, just like different economic characteristics. And again, with the language barrier, it's a real issue. So, going forward, we're going to have to be, very specific if we can, and we have to realize that obviously some people are going to be very dogmatic, like they would be about their religion. You know what I mean? And that's another thing I think to take into consideration, which is why I try not to be dogmatic about anything if I can. I mean, I'm not perfect, and I don't know anybody who is, but I think I have a lot of experience growing up with people that were, with good intentions, very dogmatic with their religious beliefs, and it's understandable when having conversation with these people why the Falun Gong, it would be considered by some people as a cult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it, by definition, I mean, if you got a little taste of it, it would kind of fit into that, I guess. But we try not to focus on that, right?
Yeah, we try to focus mostly on the economic concept of it, which is, in a way, the person we talked to might have a blind spot to it. Even because he said he was working in economics, which, when we brought up the profit motive of the show and how the artists and the dancers, how they weren't being properly paid, and he kept accusing that it was New York Times propaganda.
There's a driverless car.
Oh, sorry.
Away go, driverless car. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like, and he was, and the tickets themselves, working class people, they wouldn't be able to casually drop $80 for a night for a show.
Yeah, and we were trying to talk about, the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which is a privately owned building, and ordinarily they have dance. That's the building usually where they'll have the dance, maybe, and then the music center in the same courtyard there is where they often have opera and stuff like that. And then there's a Disney concert hall, which is where the LA Philharmonic plays in the wintertime, and in the summer they're in like their summer seasons at the Hollywood Bowl. So this is a very culturally, affluent, block of theaters and auditoriums, and that particular building usually has dance specifically, and a lot of it is for profit companies, like ballet or whatever, right? And in this case, the Falun Gong is not, or the Shen group, I should say. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. They're not a for-profit entity. So, we were just trying to ask questions, about expenses and how much profit do they make, because, he saw it as a totally non-profit kind of thing, and he spends money for his son to get the training as a musician in the orchestra, right? And then we were trying to ask him, like, well, how much are they getting paid for this performance tonight? Because most of the performers with the dance companies or whatever that are in this building get paid for their performance, not for their education, which is what apparently the Shen organization does. It's an educational kind of thing, and they get money from foundations and even from, he said, the U.S. government, and I think even the UK government, So we were trying to bring in the profit kind of thing, because he said he understood economics, but who knows? I mean, we don't want to be critical of the guy. He was a nice guy, and of course, when we walked away, it was pleasant, amicable, and he was very thankful, and we were very thankful, but it was interesting. So we're still kind of talking about it and reflecting on it, and we want to share a little bit of our thoughts with you.
Yeah, it was very important that we put a brief summary of our experience there, see what we saw, what we learned from it. The information that we gathered was very educational for us to grasp of where they're coming from and how we could fight the propaganda, because as we mentioned, like they saw it as a cultural event, but we understood it as a political event, because like their initial opening line is China before communism, and we all in America, we understand once you mention the isms, you're making it political. And even though they might not have portrayed it that way, or maybe unconsciously or consciously, they don't see it that way.
That's right.
But that's like the main selling point. And the people that they're targeting it to is the people that would have like some influence on politicians.
Right, exactly.
Like it might be some kind of donors that they could convince to follow their...
Well, let's hope that's not what's going on, but we're so accustomed to seeing that happen in this culture of the money and politics thing, that we just that just automatically comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the culture we live in.
Yeah.
So I think we'll leave it at that, but take care. Peace now, right? Always peace now.